Good evening, Courtney Friedman, Shelby Ebertowski here. We are on streaming live to make sure we're updating you on this Crabapple Fire. It's a grass fire that started at about 2 p.m. this afternoon and has now, as of last check about 5 minutes ago, burned through 8,640 acres and is still 0% contained.
Yes, this is just north of Fredericksburg, about 10-ish miles or so, just south of Enchanted Rock near Crabapple, Texas. It's also continued to move to the east, and that's what we're continuing to talk about. Is it's continued to move to the east. We're still tracking that, and you can even see that there on the satellite. That little red dot, that's where that fire is, and it's kind of just sticking around just near Crabapple, Texas, and it's just going to stick there throughout the next few hours. And this is a look at the fire smoke. You can see that just to the north. That's where we're seeing that Crabapple fire, but that's not the only fire. Multiple areas of Texas, in fact, has seen that fire throughout the day today. We've seen some pop up out east where they've had a little less chance of that fire, but for us, we've had some in Real County earlier today. We had some yesterday in Bandera County, but right now we're looking at the one in Gillespie, that county. And right now we don't know if the power outages are related to that fire, but right now we're just tracking about 5.5% of the Gillespie County is without power right now. And this is just after a warm day, or after a few warm days. We've had a few fire danger days, and today we're still in that fire risk throughout the next few hours. This is that very extreme to very high category for us in San Antonio. The orange is that very high, and you can just see most of us in South Texas in that chance for the extreme fire potential, especially because our relative humidity values still low. Earlier today, we had areas near Cotulla, just that 8% for their humidity. Up in Fredericksburg, they're sitting at about 16 for their humidity, 14 here in San Antonio, 17 in Austin. But with this fire, because we saw some stronger winds earlier, and that's what made it go from just 400 acres earlier this evening to now over 8,000, because Fredericksburg had areas of wind gusts up to about 35 to 40 miles an hour. The winds have continued to subside, but with the winds, they're coming from the west going to the east. So this fire is expected to spread just to the east, and we've already had multiple reports near Austin of the wildfire smoke being visible and just causing some air quality issues as well. Now, here in San Antonio, just seeing winds out of the northeast or northwest. We're not expected in San Antonio to receive any of this fire. That's not what it is. This is going to stay to the north, and even if you are in Fredericksburg, you are not anticipated to get any of this fire to spread closer to you. But like I said, with that air quality, we've continued to have some of that fire go to the east with that wind and that smoke and that haze, causing some low air quality for areas of Austin. But we've also had some reported wildfires near the coast. We're not really concerned about that. Most of those are contained as well at this time, but still having that red flag warning in effect for most of South Texas, stretching from areas just in West Texas, especially including areas of San Angelo to Waco, including Houston, Corpus Christi, Laredo, San Antonio, Austin. And that's because we've been continuing to see this potential for the fire danger. Now, we're still going to have that chance for some red flag warnings to continue, and that red flag warning as of now expires in just under an hour or so at 9 p.m. Still having wind gusts up to about 35 to 45 miles per hour with humidity less than 20%, as you already saw. Now, I wanted to show you this, the winds over the next few days. We've had some strong winds the last week or so, and they are anticipated to continue throughout the next few days. Wednesday and Monday, tracking another potential for some stronger winds, Courtney, especially for us in South Texas and West Texas. But good news, we're going to see a little more humidity return, and they're not going to be as strong as what we've seen today and even last Tuesday when we had more wildfires in Bexar County, especially in Bexar County and the Atascosa County line as well.
Well, it's good to see, Shelby, that those numbers are coming down throughout the evening, but we still have hours to go. And this Crabapple Fire in Gillespie County, right north of Fredericksburg, is massive. So we've said 8,600 acres, 0% contained. So we did report earlier around 4:15, 4:20. we were told that it jumped Highway 16, which was a major factor in seeing how windy this was. A couple weeks ago, when we started seeing these massive wildfires closer here to home in San Antonio, we were worried that it would jump freeways and jump roads, and that's exactly what it did. So when the winds are this strong, we do see them jumping roads, even freeways. And we know that Highway 16 and Fredericksburg and that area is very rural, but if you look at the pictures of the fire moving, we've got one right here. And then if we can maybe, Landon, pull up some of these photos, we have received dozens of photos from both viewers and emergency fire departments across the region. This one, I believe, came from Justin Horn's family, who is in the Fredericksburg area.
His parents were visiting for the weekend, and they sent it to him this morning.
Yeah, and so this was in the beginning. This was right when the fire had started, and you can see the white smoke. It really isn't that far from those roads and a lot of the structures. Right now, we do not believe any structures have burned. We have not gotten any word on that. But of course, we're combing through emergency fire department social media accounts, and we are getting communications from their communication agencies. And so this is another one from way far out. You can see the large plumes of smoke. Again, this was earlier, though. If you can imagine, that was 400 acres. And now look at this. We're talking thousands of acres. You can see a plane. This is a little bit different, that it looks like they're getting some aerial help. But if you can see across the screen how far this is spreading horizontally, and that's what we were looking at earlier when you look at these images right here, instead of just seeing that plume go vertically, we're watching it move horizontally. This is a perfect picture that you're looking at right now. If you could keep that one up for a second, you can see where they're burning, and then it just completely is taken by the wind. So this is what's so scary about these fires, is how quickly they spread. As Shelby said, the winds 30 to 45 miles per hour out in the Fredericksburg and the Hill Country, and we know how quickly things can spread in that area because of the drought that we've been having. The vegetation is so incredibly dry, and especially when you have those hills, it makes a huge difference. So here's what we know about local crews. We did get confirmation from Bexar County ESD number 3 and Bexar Bulverde Fire Department that Bexar County crews are on the scene right now, part of that main strike crew fighting the fire. And we did see on social media that Bernie Fire is at the scene as well. We also know that there are shelters that are set up, because as we said, when this fire jumped Highway 16, a lot of farm to market roads, a lot of folks were in immediate evacuation order. So there's been a shelter update from Gillespie County, and it says that it is at Zion Lutheran Church, that is at 426 West Main. Earlier, they were reporting that it's at Faith Baptist Church, but that is on State Highway 16 in Fredericksburg. So we are not positive, but we believe it's possible that the fire may have gotten too close to there, and they're just trying to maybe keep everyone extra safe. We know Zari Oates was there earlier. We have our crew on scene, and we're going to be checking in with her shortly. They're busy trying to gather information, but she was at the shelter at Faith Baptist Church earlier and said there were not a ton of people there yet, but the Red Cross is ready. So if you are watching this and you're in that line of the fire and the smoke and you've been told to evacuate, or you're in that area where the fire is moving, you can head to Zion Lutheran Church in Fredericksburg at 426 West Main Street, and they are ready to take you there. And we know typically, Shelby, that the shelters fill up more in the evening when people realize that they won't be able to go back to their house yet.
Yes, especially because the scope of this fire, it's over 8,000 acres.
Right.
Earlier today, when we first reported on it during the 5 o'clock, it was just about 400. So it's just shown that those strong winds have continued to push it, and it's just grown in size. And even if you think you are not in the fire evacuation zone, if you even think you should maybe, check out the local emergency management office. They are posting about it. If you think you are in that area, if you don't think you are area, they have non-emergency lines you can also call in multiple counties if you think you should evacuate. And I know that we've had multiple areas where we've had multiple smaller little brush fires. Yesterday we had one just north of Bandera. And then earlier today we had one earlier in just near Real County. It was the chicken
The chicken strip, I think they're calling it the chicken strip fire.
Yes, the chicken strip fire. Earlier it was about 40 acres. Now it is down to 20 and 30% contained. So that is good news. And then the Kendall County Office of Emergency Management posted just under an hour ago that they're currently working on a grass fire near Sisterdale at the county line between them and Lukenbach as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this is what we were seeing last time a couple weeks ago. This wind is widespread, so it's not contained to just one area. Please be careful of what you're burning and all of those things. We're going to go over some of the fire safety reminders in a second, but we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We'll be right back here in 2 minutes, and we're going to be communicating with our crew out in the field as well. Welcome back to our breaking news coverage of the massive grass fire sweeping through the area north of Fredericksburg. It is called the Crabapple Fire right now. It went from 400 acres to over 8,000 pretty quickly. Something that we had talked about weeks ago when we saw this developing Calaveras fire. Was the power outages. And we know that some of that was fire related, but when the wind is this bad, we see power lines knocked over, which creates more fire danger. And so this is something that is mandatory to keep an eye on when we're covering breaking news when it comes to wildfires and grass fires. So we have looked in Gillespie County, where the Crabapple Fire is. The power outages are at 1,002 outages. That was as of 20 minutes ago, and that is Central Texas Electric, which is 5.5% of the county. So right now, considering the wind level, that is pretty low.
That is fairly low, especially when you take into the fact that it is part of hill country. Some people might not be in this exact area, or some people might not even be home, especially because it's spring break. That's another thing, is a lot of people are vacationing, either just about to start vacationing or just ending their vacation for spring break. And with a fire that has over 8,000 acres burned, that can have an impact.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you bring up, Shelby, because we actually have been hearing from some of the viewers that are sending information, and as well as emergency services keeping us updated as much as they possibly can. And I think Zaria Oates had said that when she was at that original shelter that the Red Cross had heard from some people who were at their Airbnbs, which tells me that a lot of these people in the hill country, especially right now, especially in Fredericksburg, very, very beautiful and big tourist population there, that there are likely a lot of visitors in this area that are likely evacuating. So if that is the case, I assume that the shelter will be filling up a little bit more unless the wind changes and those people are not at risk anymore. But right now there's a mandatory evacuation for people in the direct line of fire. It did jump Highway 16 around 4:15 this afternoon, and a lot of those farm to market roads and some of those rural neighborhoods were in that line. So the shelter update on your screen, it was Faith Baptist Church, but the update we got is that it is now at Zion Lutheran Church. That's at 426 West Main Street in Fredericksburg. The other one was in Fredericksburg as well, but on State Highway 16, where we know the fire had jumped, and so we don't know why it changed, but this is the one that we've been updated about. So if you are in that line of smoke, if you're visiting, you're not sure where to go, just check in with this shelter. Head over to the Zion Lutheran Church. The Red Cross is ready to help you, whether you need shelter overnight or maybe you just need a couple things that were left at your house that you don't have with you. So this is available whenever you need it. And of course, we know the number of people evacuating is increasing because this fire is rapidly spreading.
Yes, and just how you mentioned a few minutes ago about that smoke, we've had multiple reports in Austin and in South Texas of being reports, and I just saw a report of that smoke visible all the way in College Station, all the way in East Texas. And East Texas has been dealing with some wildfires as well. There was some just outside of the Houston metro near Katy. That was a small little brush fire. There's been some along the coastal counties near Corpus Christi, but this fire is over 8,000 acres burned. It's, as you can see there in that picture, tons of just smoke, and that's not really good for your lungs as well.
No, definitely make sure that if you have any issues, you're sensitive to this, that you're staying inside because this is clearly spreading. Somebody we know that is in that area, Zaria Oates, has been covering this for us. Kind of obviously difficult to navigate around these fire areas, but her service is very spotty, but we do want to make sure that we get to her. She's going to tell us everything she knows and tell us where she is. So Zaria, what do you have for us?
Hey, Courtney. Yeah, we're right kind of at the intersection or just off the intersection from Highway 16 and 1323. These are two roads that have been blocked off multiple miles in a row by law enforcement and first responders. Several of them were many miles apart. As we made our way up here, we could see the flames more than 8 miles away from actually where they are. Right now, we're not able to get all the way to those flames as they work to put out that fire. We know right now from the Texas A&M Forest Service that the fire is at 0% containment. This is still an active fire that crews are working to put out. Several crews. We know at least that the Boerne Fire Department is here, Bexar County Sheriff's Office is here, and we do know some other officers are here. There are still people who haven't quite evacuated at this moment. We are told that this is not a mandatory evacuation in this moment, but that if you do live in the area east of Highway 16, to be aware of what news media outlets are saying, like us. Follow us on KSAT, and then also make sure you're aware of what local first responders are saying in the area. Again, this is not a mandatory evacuation, but it is an 8,000-acre fire at this point, and it is 0% contained. So this is something that they really want people in the area to keep an eye out on. There's a lot of dry grass in this area. People are trying to water their grass, but it's just not efforting because there is so much wind in this area. Obviously, we are going to work to keep you as informed as possible. We were told by the Texas A&M Forest Service that they're trying to get us more details and more information. As we have that information, we'll bring that to you on ksat.com. But again, right now we're just away from the fire. This is Highway 16 and 1323 just behind me. There are plenty of first responders. Again, Boerne, Kerrville, Bexar County, lots of first responders here working to put out this fire. As we learn more, we'll bring that to you. There's also, I want to mention, Red Cross is in the area. So if you are affected by the fire or if you need somewhere to stay for the night because you don't feel like your home is safe, make sure you're getting in contact with Red Cross. They are at the Lutheran Church near here. I just received a text just now. We've moved the evacuation center to Zion Lutheran Church in Fredericksburg. Everything is about the same as it was earlier. This person said they work with the Red Cross. They said they are working to make sure that everyone knows where to go. So if you are in the area, that's Zion Lutheran Church, and that did move from earlier. So make sure you put that in your phone and you're getting to where you need to be. As we learn more, we'll bring that to you on air. Zaria Oates in Fredericksburg.
All right, thank you so much, Zaria, and it's nice to have somebody out there. It's a reminder, it is dark out there now. So
Yes.
We're approaching nightfall, and this is really important to know. I'm glad that she mentioned it's not mandatory. That was something we were going back and forth with. So this is not a mandatory evacuation, but it's clear why they are saying the evacuation orders are immediate if you believe you are in that line, because it is spreading so fast.
Yes, and especially with a wildfire at night. Normally during the day, you see the plumes of smoke, you see the fire if you're close enough, but at night, the only thing you can really see is any fires. And even then you have to be close enough to see the fire. At night, it's a little harder to see the plumes of smoke. So just if you do have to go out near the Crabapple Fire, remember to be careful, especially if we're not even done with wildfire season yet, and we still have multiple days of dry humidity for us too.
Yeah, and the wind's picking up. So I know that you wanted to kind of chat about some of these things seem obvious, but
Yes.
these are reminders that are super important right now. And some of them might just, get in your head and say, oh yeah, maybe I won't do that later today. So why don't we go over some of those, Shelby?
Yep. So the first, again, most of these, some people may say they're common sense, but just a reminder, if you are in some counties where there are no burn recommendations, remember a burn ban, don't burn. No campfires or burn piles are recommended. Avoid using tools that could create sparks, especially if you're driving on cement roads. Sometimes you can see a little trailer chain drag on the road and create a spark. We are so dry in South Texas that the smallest of sparks, especially with low humidity and strong winds, can even start the smallest of fires. And cigarette butts, remember to put those out in the proper area. Parking on grass too, that's one thing that people don't think about. But when it's so dry, You get the car driving on it. It's another way to just start fires as well.
Yeah, and especially in the hill country and in rural areas, we've talked about parking on the grass sometimes is necessary. That's what,
Yes.
people typically do. So even if you have to walk a little bit further, this is serious, the way that these can spark. And unfortunately, we're seeing this unfold in real time.
Exactly, and we do have more drier days ahead of us, and I'm actually going to go to talk about that for a little bit. These are the wind gusts that we're currently seeing. Winds have continued to slowly die down for areas of the hill country, which is excellent news, especially because of that fire, but we're still seeing those stronger wind gusts. 43-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Eagle Pass, 33 in Uvalde, 37 right here in San Antonio. Earlier we saw 44% 44 miles an hour for the metro. Now that's that dry air from the multiple low pressure systems that's just been sitting over areas of Texas, and we're going to continue to have more low pressure systems just go to the north, but just leave that dry air here in South Texas and even West Texas too. The Panhandle, Oklahoma, all of these areas have seen multiple wildfires within just the last 24 hours. Now overnight normally is when we see a little bit more moisture come in from the Gulf, but during the day we're going to continue to have those dry conditions just linger for most of us in Texas. Now I did mention we've continued to have multiple systems just go through the middle portion of the country. That's what brought that severe storm and that severe weather outbreak for the southeastern part of the Gulf Coast. Multiple tornadoes touched down, multiple flash flooding areas, especially just starting in East Texas and near Louisiana. And as that system continues to move off, we're left with some quieter weather days, relatively, just wind gusts up to about 15 miles an hour tomorrow. And then Tuesday into Wednesday, we have another system just building off the Rockies, and that's going to produce more chances of some precipitation and snow for areas of the Great Lakes. But for us, has another cold front associated, and with that, we're going to continue to see that dry air and those winds just whip around from behind this front and this low pressure system, giving us more chances of multiple days of winds gusting up to 30 miles an hour for us. And I wanted to show you our 7-day. Remember, St. Patrick's Day is on Monday. If you are going out and about, remember it's going to be dry. Still expecting wind gusts, although it doesn't say it's going to be windy. We are still going to expect wind gusts up to 30 miles an hour on Monday, and we're going to have sunny skies for the rest of the week. We're not expecting any chances of precipitation anytime soon. And Tuesday and Wednesday, we're expecting more days up to about 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Still going to continue to have those sunny skies. So even if it doesn't seem like it is dry, like we're seeing that strong of winds, seeing like there might be a cloud that could produce some precipitation, it's still going to be dry. And even those temperatures, don't let it deceive you. You don't have to have wildfires for 90-degree temperatures. You can have wildfires in 70s and 80-degree temperatures too.
Right, and that's something we're going to be looking at throughout the week. We're going to take another 2-minute break right now, but we will be back with more coverage of this Crabapple Fire in Gillespie County. Thanks for sticking with us, bringing you the latest updates on the Gillespie County Crabapple Fire. Now, we know this is north of Fredericksburg. You've said this a couple times, Shelby, but I just want to make sure people know this is not going towards Fredericksburg.
Correct. Now, the winds, we're seeing some easterly winds, so it's not actually going south to the city.
Good to know.
The city, we've been seeing some shelters pop up, and the city, Fredericksburg, is actually the better spot to be.
Okay.
The winds have been pushing east, though, so we've seen a lot of wildfire smoke reported all the way in College Station.
College Station in Austin. This is, I mean, I would say this is bizarre, but it's really not when we talk about the dry conditions.
Correct.
Look at that plume of smoke. So this was one of the original pictures we got from meteorologist Justin Horn. His parents sent him this around 2 o'clock when the reports for this fire came in. This is the beginning of the fire, and you can see up in flames, so much space, and we've seen so much more coverage since then. This is not the picture of, the red flames spreading horizontally as that wind blows it. But for this to be one of the first pictures that we have from the Fredericksburg area, that is pretty intense to see. And we know that as it spread, our area comes together really quickly. Our Bexar County crews are on this scene as part of that main strike crew taking down the fire from the front. So that's from Bexar County ESD number 3 and Bear Bulverde Fire Department confirmed that with us, that their crews are on scene. We know that Bernie Fire is at the scene, and our Zaria Oates just reported to us in her live shot just minutes ago that Kerrville Fire Department is on the scene. I'm sure with many, many others. A couple weeks ago, when we were reporting on that massive Calaveras fire, there was talk about the strategy, and we had some experts on for our hours-long live stream, and they were talking about all of these crews working together. So for a fire that's spreading this fast, you really have to be careful with your firefighters and your crews. It's a lot of danger.
Correct.
They are trained to work together. So they all have the same mentality. They all know exactly where to be. There's obviously a command, and they just kind of fall into line. And the fact that they are all working together, we are thinking of them and appreciating their bravery in this, because we know how dangerous these fires are with the wind spreading. So we know that you said earlier, Shelby, 30 to 45 mile per hour winds in that area.
Yep.
What are we looking at right now?
So right now we're still looking at some stronger winds in the Fredericksburg area. Just as I checked a few minutes ago, we were at about 30 mile an hour per winds, but that's a look at that fire and smoke. So we have that Crabapple Fire just north of Fredericksburg in Gillespie County, and you can see not only some smoke in most of Texas, in fact, but you can see that darker gray. That's where we're seeing the smoke from this fire move off into areas of Austin, reports in College Station. But this isn't the only fire we've seen today. We've seen some smaller brush fires pop off. We've seen one, which was the chicken strip fire in Real County. That is now 30% contained at 20 acres. And then we reported to you at the beginning of this cast of a fire located in Sisterdale in Kendall County. Now we have had an update. That fire is now 50% contained, and it is consistent of very thick brush in the area. They have no evacuations in place at this time. They're still waiting on resources, but most of the resources are still going to just north of Fredericksburg for this fire too.
And that's such a good point, because right there, all of those red dots are fires that we're looking
Yes.
at? Okay.
And there are some smaller ones that aren't even listed. These are just the ones that are listed on the Texas A&M Wildfire website.
Okay. And so, I mean, this is kind of extreme just to see how many have popped up around the area. This is not just a local issue. When these winds come through, so much of Texas is in dry drought conditions. But it's obvious when you look at that, the largest one right now that we are seeing is this Crabapple Fire north of Fredericksburg. And, as Zaria was saying, there are a lot of emergency crews there, but, this is going to take cooperation from the community as well. They are trying to put out the main part of this fire. These strike teams are right there up in front and center of this fire. So make sure that if you see that smoke coming for you and you don't feel comfortable in your house, you are making sure to evacuate. It is not mandatory, but they're asking people to use their best judgment. And the reason for that is it's night. They don't have, the ability to go door to door and see who's in danger. Plus, these winds can change direction. So what I wanted to get from you, Shelby, was how often do we see wind directions change dramatically during this fire? So we know that it's blowing in a certain direction right now.
Yes, so this is because of that cold front that came through last night. That's actually allowing for some relatively steady winds from the north to the northwest. And that's going to be a main factor in this fire. Is we've only seen the westerly winds for this fire, and that's just pushing those plumes to the east. That's where it's been spreading to the east, especially that's why there's no threat to areas of Fredericksburg. But if these winds continue to grow, as they're expected tonight to still be about 20-25 miles an hour, still having low relative humidity, that can still be a factor for this fire to potentially stay alive or still have some of those hot spots as well.
Right, and so that's good to know, but obviously anything can happen, but it's more likely that this is the direction the wind will stay because of the front that's coming through.
Correct.
Which is why we can see the smoke all the way in College Station.
Yes, and tomorrow is going to be a quieter wind day, I would say. Still going to have some stronger winds if we can get the weather graphics up right there. You can see Sunday only expecting wind gusts up to about 15 miles an hour. But if we still have hot spots around for Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or even getting all the way to Friday, that can still be a factor on these winds and this fire, and having a difficulty for the hot spots to be put out, especially because it's so large.
Yeah.
Firefighters might be able to find out exactly where the hot spots are.
Yeah, and just looking at this graphic right here, this is not contained to today, and they might be going down tonight in a little bit. But when you look at all of this for the whole week, this is clearly a message that this is going to continue to be a problem, and there is a risk for what's happening right now all week long. So, of course, we talked about those things to not help start that fire, that next one, but also when we talk about power lines, this is what has power lines or what have caused some massive fires in Texas history. And so it's really something to think about. A lot of us have debris and branches in our yards from this. But what I really wanted to mention was what we heard last time was trim your trees. If tomorrow is the day that you realize, you know what, these trees are actually dangerous, get those trees trimmed away from those power lines and try not to contribute to the possibility that they could start a fire.
Yep, and you were talking about power outages, so I wanted to pull up this graphic. There are some reported power outages. However, this is not confirmed whether it is from the fire or if these power outages are from other sources. But as of just around 8 o'clock when we started this, from Central Texas Electric, they had reported just over 1,002 customers had no power, which is about 5.5% of the county.
Right. And, you know, of course, this is a small percentage of the county, seemingly so, but we also don't know the scope of this. And this can change, especially at night. It is really hard for crews to get to these areas. So we're hoping that these numbers go down and not up. But of course, we will have to keep you updated on that. We are going to end the stream right now. If there is an emergent situation, we will of course jump back on, but we will be here with all of your Night Beat news starting after the game, hopefully close to 10 o'clock. We have that basketball game on. But yeah, we will still have all of your information updated on ksat.com. And again, if there is something emergent that happens, we will jump right back here on streaming to make sure that you have all of that information. But right now, what we're looking at are the same numbers that we got around 7:45 or 7:50. 8,640 acres is the Crabapple Fire in Gillespie County, north of Fredericksburg. 0% contained. If you are in that line and you're worried about it, head to the shelter at Zion Lutheran Church in Fredericksburg. That is 426 West Main Street. The Red Cross is waiting for you with whatever you might need.